So, it's the beginning of the year, I'm still here, and we still have one more chapter to deal with in this godforsaken hellhole starring cTOS's deadbeat daddy. So, let's see how this turns out. For those of you who are tuning in from the last time, we recently witnessed Aiden's holy crusade around the streets of Chicago, turning the city upside down in an attempt to find the killer of his only niece and tying up some loose ends. However, the fun doesn't stop there as we get thrown into one last dark chapter, Bad Blood. No, I'm not talking about that song made for the Swifties, the other one that's like less important but also pivotal to the story. This time around, we step into the dirty boots of Raymond Eugene Kenny, aka T-Bone Grady, as he gets ready to follow through with his original plan of ditching Chicago and making an attempt to start another quiet life. Unfortunately, his plans come to a stop when he's forced to deal with past mistakes that take a turn for the worst. Besides this, there are plenty of new secrets lying about in the streets once more, some over familiar faces, some over large organizations, so let's go ahead and take a stab at it. Our story begins approximately a month after the main campaign, with T-Bone infiltrating a random Bloom security firm, deleting the company's remaining dirt on him. Or perhaps he's deleting some wild internet history. Who knows? Anyway, the guards walk in, question his motives, and catch him in the act only to catch the fate in the process, and the rest is history. With the building set on high alert, Grady manages to evade capture and eventually return back to the silo, his temporary rabbit hole. With everything in order, he's finally set on leaving town permanently, but not before an old acquaintance reaches out to him. By the look of things, it seems the fixers managed to finally apprehend Tobias to claim his bounty, causing T-Bone to perform a search and rescue for his former colleague somewhere in the wards. However, this would only proceed to bring up old shit between the two.
So you gonna tell me what you did to piss off the fixers?
Me? This is on you. I'm still running from your mess. I have been ever since you and Rose decided to blow whistles at Bloom. I had a good life, Ray.
You sure fooled me. We had to walk around on eggshells because you were such a head case.
Well, Rose is dead now, and your little tantrum in 2003. How many people died? Yeah. And I'm the head case.
You little shit.
I'm sorry, I didn't... You know what? Thanks for the rescue. But I need to go.
Despite the nuisance of the situation, T-Bone comes to realize that there's more to this, and it's obvious that he just can't leave Frewer hung out to dry. Instead, he decides to get the necessary cash and equipment by performing street sweeper assignments under the jurisdiction of his police informant, Detective Sheila Billings. During the course of the game, she gives T-Bone certain tasks via street sweeper to clean up the remaining trash left behind after the fall of Iraq and Lucky Quinn. Before this, she was a regular officer who made a break into the Parker Square stranglings case. However, due to the corrupt bullshit going on behind closed doors, she took matters into her own hands to solve the case, but didn't cover her tracks properly. With the assistance of a certain mystery man, the evidence was wiped clean, and ever since, they've been working hand in hand. After completing a few contracts, the deadbeat hatches a plan to derez Frewer's information from Bloom altogether. The only way to do so was by infiltrating his colleague's old hackerspace that's been reformed under the brand of Bloomforge. By twisting and turning around the security details, some of which was created by Frewer himself, which fucking blows I might add, T-Bone finally bypasses the encrypted information of the central computer, and what he finds is quite astonishing. It's no surprise that Bloom was the one to place a bounty on Frewer's head, but at the same time, it's still very odd. I mean, sure, when push comes to shove, his actions can be deemed inappropriate, but that's kind of what happens when paranoia gets the better of you, especially when a multi-million-dollar company has its sights set on you for something you had nothing to do with. But what's really concerning is that they've hired high-end fixers to handle the problem even after a decade has passed. Mind you that these are the same type of goons that have been after T-Bone for a while now. So, with no other options on the table, he uses this as an opportunity to use Frewer as bait just to see what he can reel in. Beforehand, T-Bone lays out the plan of luring their target out in the open, much to Frewer's dismay. At first, nothing seems out of the ordinary until we get to the homeless area where we encounter some trouble. Doesn't take too long before the cavalry arrives to ran down with heavy gunfire. Still, thanks to the mounted security cameras, which was a sorely missed opportunity in future games by the way, it would be a matter of time before we completely demolish the opposition and chase down a fixer who happens to make their rounds at a nearby construction yard. However, we get sidetracked by a random event, which happens twice in this storyline.
Hello, my name is Charlotte Gardner, speaking on behalf of Bloom. As you know, crime rates have plummeted since Bloom brought the cTOS to Chicago. Our system prioritizes security and safety. Last year, Aiden Pierce launched a terrorist attack on the cTOS, but was ultimately unable to bypass our security measures. With the cooperation of the CPD, Bloom is now offering a $100,000 reward for any information leading to Aiden Pierce. Thank you for your time and your help to make Chicago a safer city.
And thus, the fox hunt begins. Thanks, asshole. Because of his affiliations with Pierce, T-Bone scrounges around and learns that Bloom has enlisted the help of multiple resources, including a random script kiddie and deadly bounty hunters. After some time has passed, we manage to infiltrate the bunker, and we see that Charlotte Gardner, Bloom's PR director, is leading the investigation and will not stop until Pierce and T-Bone are apprehended. After dealing with a certain hacking minigame that I would consider a crime against humanity within the entire series, we place a bug on her phone, and it would only be a matter of time until T-Bone disrupts the Rosario brothers' plans and ties up loose ends in the process.
T-Bone, you were trying to call?
Oh, now you answer the damn phone.
I was in the middle of something tricky. I couldn't answer.
Yeah, well, I just stopped some angry motherfuckers, bounty hunters, from heading right to your goddamn doorstep. You're welcome. Oh, and DedSec knows about you and Clara, and they found the bunker. By the way, stay away from the bunker. Charlotte fucking Gardner and Bloom live there now.
Okay.
Yeah. You have yourself a nice day.
Yeah. You too.
When all is said and done, we catch up with Frewer at the nearby Quinkies where we see him in absolute disarray. Of course, T-Bone is riddled with guilt as he glares at what has become of his former co-workers since he himself is partly to blame, especially after a certain incident has occurred. Now that I think about it, I did always want to elaborate on how is it that Frewer has been reduced to this low point in his life, so here it is. Before his time with Bloom, Tobias Frewer was, believe it or not, a regular working man who had a regular job and a regular healthy relationship with his loved one. He and his colleagues would do the usual business of tech support, whether it's fixing equipment for the clientele like PC rigs or laptops, or just shoot the shit and talk about the aesthetics of a starship when it's all about the functionality behind it. Anywho, it wouldn't be long until Bloom would sink their greedy hands into the hackerspace to invest their time and money so that they would rebrand it under their image. Of course, some didn't like working under someone else's thumb and decided to part ways, but not Tobias, no siree. He saw this as an opportunity to do better with his livelihood, and he was going to see it through. Eventually, he would have the opportunity to work alongside Rose Washington and the hacking legend Raymond Kenny on the Central Operating System, cTOS for short, in a closed-off testing site in what would later become the Bunker. From there, they would have all their share of good times, practical jokes, and tough scenarios when faced with certain challenges. However, all this came to an end when both Washington and Kenny were terminated from the project altogether, whistleblowing over Bloom's deceit, leaving Tobias alone with no support. As Rose puts it, he just walked off, never to be seen again. Shifting our focus on both men back in the present, they head towards the construction yard to uncover what's really happening. As it turns out, Raymond was, or is, the priority target that they were going for all along. Gee, I didn't see that coming from a mile away. Anyway, to add salt to the wound, the only person who knows what's going on has been taken to some abandoned mansion on the outskirts of Chicago. This rundown backwater trap house is a body shop consisting of corpses, living subjects, and a strict violation of various health codes. Our mole, Alex Travorsky, was held hostage and was laid out like that one guy from SpongeBob, but with his help, T-Bone could get a pin on his target's last known location. Unfortunately, we get sidetracked yet again.
Know that an attack on one of us is an attack on us all. We will retaliate. Consider this your last warning. Back off now, or prepare for a new kind of war.
Oh god, it never ends. Okay. For those who remember, in the main storyline, DedSec was introduced as an anonymous organization that appears randomly and delivers cryptic messages throughout the game.
Boom is broken. 30 seconds is all we need.
30 seconds, no one knows. Our little secret.
We will be the watchdogs.
Shut up, you fucking nerd. Jesus Christ.
They consist of a group of hackers that hide their identities while trying to get the public to think for themselves and realize that these greedy corporations are using them for their own gain in some poetic fashion, I suppose. They want the people to learn the truth and to unite against their oppressors. At least, that's what I gained from it. But after recent events, one of the members decided that they had enough of their leaders wasting the potential of what DedSec could be, and decided to do their own thing. From here, we travel across the city to find anything going on in DedSec's inner circle, the Council of Daves. Going back to Giggle's audio logs, they're basically in charge of the group of nerds. Kinda like college professors, except they're more condescending and a bit more paranoid than a pack of birds. Rightfully so, since two of them end up dead in some mysterious fashion. And how exactly did this happen, you ask? Simple. One of the jackasses is under the belief that offing the current leaders and provoking a war will give DedSec the push that they need to fulfill their potential. It'd always be your own people. Every damn time. Luckily, T-Bone intervenes at the last possible minute to prevent any more casualties. Whatever kind of deal they have going on, who knows? I'm just here at this point. Getting back to more pressing matters, T-Bone makes his way to the wards to get the man of the hour. But once again, life has a way of slapping her ass cheeks.
Washed. It'll make it real easy to. Ah! What is. Ah, you dirty fuck.
Yeah, outside the bar. Your guys will bring him in.
If I'm being honest with you, I don't know what's more infuriating during the entirety of this mission. T-Bone miraculously shrugging off a horse tranquilizer to the neck like it's nothing, or that this idiot didn't even bother to use common sense and stick him in the trunk. You know what, now that I think about it, T-Bone did mention that he had done LSD a few times here and there before, so he gets to pass just this one time. But this motherfucker, every idea you can think of, and you just left him there, on the ground, next to a working vehicle. I for one am glad that we managed to tail this asshole back to wherever they came from just to annihilate them in the next scene. But if y'all thought that this was crazy, then wait till you discover who's really behind all of this bullshit. Okay, so now technically, while we're still on the last mission of Act 2, I wanted to show how important the buildup was as we trail our target back to their hideout. During this time, we overheard the discussion of how Bloom is in collaboration with a certain skilled hacker, which is how they managed to keep tabs on Raymond to begin with. Imagine my surprise when we find out who was hired for this job exactly.
You inbred backwaters Sasquatch! Do you understand how extinct you are?
Well, why don't you stop by so we can talk about it?
No, this isn't a fever dream. He's still alive, but I think the more important question is, how? Here's the thing, before Aiden crashed his little party at the Ambrose Theater, Default, that's fucking rap by the way, managed to pull a decoy out of his ass to take the fall, meaning that we actually killed some random person because he treats everything like a game. Now that we revealed the identity of who was after us, it was time to find out why. T-Bone quickly seizes the opportunity to track down Ratman thanks to a clue from their video feed, knowing he'll be greeted by more goons under Bloom's payroll. However, once he reaches his destination, the tone changes completely altogether.
Investigators have confirmed Raymond Kenny
ex-Bloom Industries employee is responsible for the blackout, which has resulted in 11 confirmed deaths. Kenny's motivations are as of yet unknown. And Bloom has...
No! It's all bullshit! That's not the way it went down at all, you twisted psychopathic fuck! Is this how you get off? Well, fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck.
For context, what you've just witnessed was the death of 11 victims during the blackout in New York 2003, just 10 years prior to the main storyline. Each art piece shown elaborates how the victims had perished during their final moments, all of this caused by a single man who wanted to show how broken the system was. At that very moment, T-Bone was so desperate to find a rat at the end of the maze that he ended up becoming the main test subject in this horrific experiment you would call revenge. Now, as much as I want to just stop and discuss this topic in full, I think it'd be best if we save it for last and just cut to the chase. Now that we know the truth, it's become quite clear that Default has a motive, or in this case, some bad blood against Raymond Kenny, and will stop at nothing to see his head on a platter. So, with this in mind, T-Bone alerts Freer of the situation, and both men proceed to hold the line against multiple fixers back at the silo, using every dirty trick in the book until they can confirm the exact coordinates of Default's hideaway. With everything in place, the men proceed to traverse into the rat's lair, hoping to get the upper hand on their unstable adversary. After navigating through various trap rooms, each more twisted than the last, T-Bone eventually stumbles upon the final area, hoping to end this game of cat and mouse. Unfortunately, what he would find was a room composed of his worst nightmare, different video feeds showing the affected family members of the victims from the night of the blackout, with Default being front and center. T-Bone pleads to the audience, owning up to his mistakes for what went down, and for allowing this sicko to bring him back into the mess to begin with. Despite his pleas, Default proceeds to gas the room and witness his death in real time. But at the very last minute, Tobias shows up, allowing T-Bone to access his phone, hacking the ventilation system in the process, and turn the tables on the rat, giving him a taste of his own medicine. After everything the duo had gone through, both were able to let go of the past that had once held them back through this difficult chapter of their lives, and instead decided to look over the horizon with nothing but burgers and fruity drinks, and as corny as it sounds. Now, even though we are at the end of this chapter, before we wrap this up, we still need to go over the aftermath of the blackout and the mistakes that followed along with it. So, going down the list, we already know that Raymond Kenny had gotten an idea of Bloom's ulterior motives during his employment with the corporation, has been mentioned and or created different audio logs depicting the events in various scenarios before his termination, and to top it all off, he has created a man-made virus that was capable of wrecking an entire operating system within a matter of moments. The main concern with this is that despite his initial intentions, I feel Kenny had created a temporary solution that would create a permanent problem going forward. This entire situation is similar to that of a double-edged sword. Yes, we know that Bloom is a horrendous company that has abused its power time and time again. They need to be called out and kept in check. Yes, we are aware that Raymond Kenny wanted to show that if a single individual can creep into a hyped up security program and shut it down from within, others might be capable of performing the same tactic or much worse. And trust me, we've seen it happen multiple times. Regardless of how he felt, however, he decided to pull the trigger, stunned by the events that were to unfold. And what did he gain from this? Nothing but bad blood between himself and those who were affected by his poor decision making. Tobias and the hell he went through for over a decade. Bloom, as they would label him, as a domestic cyber terrorist with the corporation looking like the good guy. And lastly, the families of the 11 victims who suffered immensely during their final moments, whose grief would end up in the form of vengeance hiding behind a rat mask. J.B. Markowitz, otherwise known as Default, would soon take it upon himself to track down the man whom he blames for the untimely death of his only sibling and make him pay for his crimes. Apart from being a known icon within the music industry, he is also a skilled hacker who once strived to be a part of DedSec, even going so far as to try to be the head of the clique. With the much needed help from Clara Lyle, he'd soon meet up with the Daves to negotiate terms, only to be denied joining their ranks. Frustrated by this decision, Default would end up taking their ideology for his own and trash it altogether. It would only be a matter of time before Bloom decides to hire the egotistical little shit, a horrible decision on their part, just to find a man who tried to drink his worries away. And, as you've just witnessed, the entirety of that plan had backfired. In the grand scheme of things, the point that I'm trying to get across is that in the end, they both were dealt a shitty hand in life and deserved better, but the only thing preventing that was themselves, believe it or not. On one hand, T-Bone understood the severity of what had happened. He tried to make amends with what he had done. He is aware that he has severely fucked up big time, and that no amount of money could ever heal the emotional trauma these people have gone through. This event will forever be etched into that man's soul, waking up with a cold sweat every night. As for Default, shit, where do I even begin? He is an egotistical psychopath, point blank period. Unfortunately for someone like him, there is no hope. As horrific as it sounds, he is a lost cause that could care less if someone, or anyone for that matter, were to get hurt. What really concerns me are his methods and projects that he has done. Case in point, his little art show and the horrific details of how each person died. This is the literal equivalent of lighting candles in every hallway just before you attempt to cleave someone with an axe. I'm actually surprised that he didn't kill two of the Daves, since they did what every parent would say to their toddler when they act up. No. If we're being real, I wouldn't put it past him joining DedSec just for the resources alone if it meant finding Raymond, but seeing as how DedSec idolized T-Bone in some sort of weird fashion, like a hero I guess you could say, that was never going to work out the way he intended. That and Default's childlike demeanor wasn't making it any better. Now, don't get me wrong, he's good at what he does, but treating everything like a goddamn kid's game could get annoying real quick. Remember the Ambrose Theater and the bullshit stunts that he pulled with Aiden? Yeah, that was bound to blow up in his face, even if it was a decoy. But hey, if the 1% wasn't available, Lucky Quinn would have been an option, but unfortunately for him, he had chest pains. And as for the dumbasses that are incorporated with Bloom, hiring someone as deranged as Default to find a problem they created wouldn't have gone so well either. He more than likely would have used their own system against them just for the shits and giggles. Real talk, even if he managed to have gotten rid of T-Bone there and then back at his lair, who's to say he would have stopped there? At that point, he would have had the means to do anything his twisted little heart desires with no one to keep tabs on him. Clara really did try to warn us. She put it best. While he may have been ready for the world was not ready for what Default had in store. If anything, it makes me wonder what kind of person he could have been had his brother been alive. But enough is enough. It's been fun, but I've had my fair share of this city and the dark secrets that keeps on spilling into the streets. Perhaps one day I can talk to you all in an area where it's more sunny.